Megace were formed in 1988 by singer Melanie and guitarist Jörg, who had previously played in a few local bands already, most noticeably Xandril. 6 months after their beginning, they presented a first release, which may have been a little too early. The Sign of the Ape demo was still a bit underproduced and didn't reveal the progressive style yet the band would develop in the 90s. What we hear is speed and thrash metal with an extra melodic guitar touch, trying to move away from the typical 80s thrash. Melanie did a lot of rough shouting comparable to Sabina Claessen's style in Holy Moses. The surprising element is her swap to melodic voice in the second song Better to Forget. Today we have a lot of female singers who demonstrate such variety, recently Alyssa in Arch Enemy for example. But in the 80s I believe Melanie actually was the first. In the 90s many bands split vocals between a male singer for the growls and a female soprano singer, but as for a female singer doing both, Megace took us by surprise. The second demo, This Is the News, made a big step towards more progressive structures right away with the first song, Let Me Explain. We are exposed to a lot more breaks here. Yet, as the band said in an interview with Ian Page's magazine, they are writing songs to the point. Megace weren't composing like other progressive bands who added another part and another part for the sake of complexity to end up with a 10-minute epic. Megace songs usually ran for 4 minutes and they kept up the aggression level you need for thrash music. Bass player Criddle had joined them for the second demo and would remain a permanent member. Melanie explained in the following interview why Megace did not fit into the usual categories.
Also ich denke, wir mischen sehr viel. Also man kann uns, denke ich, nicht eindeutig einordnen. Man kann nicht sagen, wir machen ganz straighten Trash oder Speed oder irgendwie sowas. Also ich denke, so die progressive Ecke, da kann man schon sagen, dass wir da reingehören. Ja, aber auch nicht 100%ig, weil dazu sind halt immer noch unterschiedliche Parts da drin, die das Ganze auflockern und so. Und ja, ich würde sagen, insgesamt ist es eigentlich ziemlich anstrengend zu hören. Also es ist nicht so durchgängig. Das macht es aber auch wieder interessant. Also weil man eben nicht immer nur eine Sache hört, sondern weil man halt immer verschiedene Eindrücke hat. Ne? Und dann ist es als Zuhörer doch anspruchsvoller. Natürlich sind wir nicht die absolute Live-Band, wo man halt richtig so abgehen kann. Also das ist dann eben nicht so der Fall.
According to another interview in Underground Empire magazine, Megace had planned to release their first album still in 1990, but the intended record company went bust. They had to look for a new label and thus the record appeared a year later in 1991 as one of the first releases of 1MF Records, a small German label which wouldn't last very long either. My favorite track on the A-side is Let Me Explain, which begins with an innocent melodic guitar solo before turning into an Anthrax kind of thrash song with good vocal arrangements, the male backing vocals responding to Melanie's leads. On the B-side, my vote goes to Discord, which has a great balance between melancholy and aggression. Normally, the first album after some demo tapes is a big step forward for a band, but in an interview with Otherwise magazine, Melanie and Jörg made the interesting observation that it was rather a step backwards for the band. First, they noticed more pressure. Things weren't running as easy as before anymore. Second, it appeared that they received a handful of negative reviews for the album, whereas the demos had mostly met with praise. Of course, I don't know which reviews in particular they had read at the time of this interview, but I could imagine that this effect was partly caused by a shift in the magazines rather than musical changes. Demos are reviewed only by the underground press, who are oftentimes very supportive, but LPs are reviewed by the bigger magazines too, which are more mainstream orientated, and that could be a problem for a band that doesn't fit into the usual boxes. After the Human Errors LP, Megace played a couple of gigs, and I went to see them live for the first time in 1992 at Hamburg Marx Club, supporting local thrashers Torment. Without detailing all the lineup changes over the years, one significant change occurred when Stefan replaced Dirty on guitar. Although Dirty had been a prolific composer for the band, this change did not result in any noticeable shift in musical direction. The drummer position, however, was vacant several times throughout the band's history until Andreas joined in 1994 as a permanent member. After the release of the third demo, Pseudo Identity, in 1994, I saw a headline show of the band at the Logo Club in Hamburg. The demo wasn't selling well, a record contract was nowhere in sight, and finally the band would start in 1996 to record a second album, self-produced and with borrowed equipment. Also in 1996, I saw another headline show of Megace at the Marx Club, supported by my good friends Bad Influence. To me, that was the best Megace gig I'd seen so far. They kept the same lineup together for some time and sounded really tight now. So I asked the band 3 months later to play a show in the city of Bremen, supporting new wave of British heavy metal legends Blitzkrieg. That was a nice opportunity to film the band live. Even if it was only a small gig, here's a glimpse. One of the main obstacles to the band's rise to fame was their limited availability. Because of their day jobs, they could only play occasional weekend gigs. They never went on extended tours or supported a major act, which prevented them from reaching a wider audience. 1999, after 3 years in the making, the second album, Inner War, was finally released by Angular Records. This was a label specializing on progressive bands like Eternity X. Needless to say, this was again a small label which couldn't do much on the promotional side for the band and folded after a couple of years. This serves as a reminder that only a small number of progressive bands actually achieve strong sales. This kind of music is made for true metal enthusiasts, and starting a label dedicated to it requires a certain kind of positive madness. Thankfully, there are a few people willing to take that risk. Without them, the metal scene would be far less diverse. Inner War offers more variety than the debut. From the aggressive Schweiznart to the melodic ciphers, from the weird 2 to the catchy cover Synchronicity, Megace are taking us on an interesting journey here. Picking something like a typical song is just not possible for my purposes here, so I chose Cry, which I think is a tune that continues the first album more than others. After the new studio album, Megace also recorded a few songs for tribute samplers like Iron Fist for this Motorhead compilation and The Dogs of War for a Pink Floyd tribute. 2001 I saw Megace live again, supporting Australia's Vanishing Point at the Marks Club. That would unfortunately be their last gig as they split in 2002. Guitarist and founder member Jörg left to start a new band called Fire, whose musical direction was more traditional heavy rock. They only produced 2 singles so far, but played many live shows. I filmed no less than 3 of them. You find that footage on my channel. The remaining Megace members recorded a couple of demos, which were released in 2025 for the first time on the double LP The Demo Collection. These final tracks are a pretty wild mixture in different musical styles. Some don't really sound like Megace anymore. Consequently, they started a new band called Step Into Liquid. In 2004 they released an EP called First Steps, followed in 2007 by the album Traffic in My Head. Rather soon after the album release, however, their official homepage fell quiet. I haven't heard official news of a split and presume this was a case of slowly fading away into inactivity. Goodbye.